Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special Pro News 7 at 10 this Monday night. I'm Jay Ritchie.
And I'm Mitch Roberts. Before we get to our questions, here is the latest piece of healthcare news from Washington about healthcare reform. Republicans are targeting older Americans who worry about President Obama's plan by unveiling a seniors' healthcare Bill of Rights. The GOP National Committee today outlined 6 principles it says will protect Medicare and prevent rationing of health care based on age. It says that will guarantee that the government will not get between seniors and their doctors. The Obama administration has insisted that the plan will support and won't do any of those things that the Republicans are warning against. Well, joining us now is Congressman Mac Thornberry. Thank you very much for being here. And we'll start with that one, Mac. What exactly do you think about what the administration and the story that we just described about the Senior Bill of Rights? What are you hearing from seniors about their main concerns?
Well, they have a number of concerns about health care, one of which is Medicare. One of the ways this new bill is paid for is by taking several $100 billion out of Medicare. What's that going to do to the benefit they already have? And the concerns I think a lot of people have about getting government between you and your doctor and some of the other issues that have come up, I think they are real. And so they need to be dealt with straightforwardly, and hopefully this discussion can slow down enough so that we will.
All right, Congressman, let's get to the questions that we had people email to us for the last week or so. Our first one isn't natural. It is from Bonnie. Bonnie says, this is really a time you should be listening to the people who elected you, so she would like to know why you have not thought it necessary to hold a town hall meeting in Amarillo.
Well, I've had hundreds of town hall meetings since I've been in office, if you add them all together. What I've found over the years is generally in August, people are trying to get their kids back to school, finish vacations, and they're not really interested in coming to them. Now, this August has been a very different situation, but I had scheduled to do other things. So I'm going to have more town hall meetings. I'm going to have telephone town hall meetings. I've been reading my mail, which is piling up pretty good thick, having meetings like I had today. So I'm listening to people in a variety of formats, and that's what I think I need to do, hear from all sorts of folks.
Okay.
All right, our second question comes from George, and it's really short and sweet. George writes, the only question I'd ask is whether he has read the health care bill himself fully.
I have read parts of different health care bills. It was introduced in the House, about 1,000 pages, and then referred to 3 different committees. So there are 3 different versions, 3 different 1,000-page bills, and I have not read them all. But, of course, that's not what we're going to vote on. What's going to happen next, if there's a vote, is that those 3 get folded into one version. That's what we have to vote on the floor of the House. But the other thing is, it's not just whether you've read it, it's whether you understand it and whether you really understand the impact it's going to have on the people in our area. Now, that's a lot harder than just reading through the pages. That's listening to people. And from the people who have to live it every day. And I think that's a bigger and more important part of my job.
Okay. Next question is an email from Johnny. And Johnny writes, I understand Mr. Thornberry is against the health care bill. I am wondering what he visions as a way to take care of the health care problems. I guess there's so many ways to go with that, but what do you think?
Well,
top of your list.
There are. I would start out this way. Number one, this bill tries to remake the whole health care system. We need to slow it down and just take off bite-sized chunks rather than to remake the whole thing in a single wave. And so I've introduced 5 bills, for example, some of which I've introduced in several other years, that try to deal with narrow, specific problems. I think a lot of people agree that health insurance needs to be improved, that there are problems, that I heard today from small businesses here in Amarillo that it is cheaper to buy an individual policy than a small business policy to cover your 10 employees. That doesn't make any sense. So health insurance has real issues for affordability because it is getting more and more expensive. We can deal with health insurance without setting up all these government boards and commissions to get in between you and your doctor. So I would start there. With tort reform, reducing paperwork, and health insurance and making it more competitive. And just see if that doesn't help a little bit before you start remaking the whole system.
All right, we have a question now coming from Rhonda, and she has this one. She says, how much have you received in campaign contributions from the healthcare industry, and how can you say those contributions do not influence your stance on reform, or are you just following your party's marching orders?
I'm not following anybody's marching orders. I am trying to listen to the people in our area. That includes doctors and hospitals. It also includes small businesses and patients. And that's all of us. I don't know exactly how much money off the top of my head I've received from people who are in the healthcare profession. In Amarillo, for example, a lot of people are employed by healthcare. And I think most of them do not want to be government employees, by the way. But, you know, this is true with any area. You receive contributions from people who support you and want to encourage your efforts. But my job is to listen to the people I represent, remember who I work for, and try to figure out what's the best thing, in my opinion, for the country and for the district that I represent. And that's never true anywhere more than healthcare, which, as I say, is so intensely personal, affects every person's life in ways that few other issues really do.
All right, that's the first handful. Let's take a break from our discussion right now. We'll be back with more healthcare questions from you and answers from Congressman Mac Thornberry right after this break. Welcome back to this special edition of Pro News 7 at 10, where our topic is health care, and our special guest is Congressman Mac Thornberry. Let's get back to some of these questions. We had people email to us in the last week and a half. Here's a unique one from Billy. Billy writes, as a 30-year retiree from the U.S. Marine Corps, and also having paid into Social Security for a total of 50 years, I wonder, is there going to be any change to my Medicare coverage and my TRICARE for life coverage, which I have earned?
I think there is concern, as I mentioned, about Medicare. To pay for this vast expansion of government health care, the proposal is to take several $100 billion out of Medicare. And Medicare already is in financial trouble. Sometimes it's hard to find a doctor who will accept Medicare. They're cutting back on reimbursements. And a number of people would say, including me, we need to focus on fixing the problems in Medicare before we start spreading those problems to all the other parts of our healthcare system. TRICARE for Life is funded differently. It is part of the military healthcare system, and there are some proposals to increase deductibles and so forth, but that's not really part of this proposal that we're talking about in this bill.
Okay.
All right, the next question, Congressman, comes from Becky, and she asks, Social Security is not raising recipients' cost of living for the next 2 years. We had that story earlier today on Pro News 7 at 6, and she's wondering, is that so they can use the money to help with the new Obama health care bill?
No. Social Security cost of living adjustment is based on a formula related to the Consumer Price Index. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics does this calculation, and whatever increase or not there is based on the level of inflation in the country. So it's really unrelated. This cost of living adjustment formula has been in place for a number of years. Some people think we need to improve that formula, that it does not accurately reflect what's really happening with the cost of living, but it's not related to the health care bill.
Okay. Congressman, a viewer named Al had this question, sent us to us last Monday. He says, we know your position on health care. What I want to know is, why don't we hear it loud and clear? Let them know in Washington that you are from the panhandle of the great state of Texas. He wants you to be even more loud about your position.
Well, I think people know I'm from the panhandle of the great state of Texas, and they know what my position is. And I agree that it's important to communicate with people the concerns they have. The rest of the story is, though, politically what needs to happen is we need to have 40 or 50 Democrats stand up and say, slow this train down so we can consider other alternatives to health care. And so all of our communication and discussion needs to be focused on those 40 or 50 Democrats who need to be the ones to join with most of the Republicans to say, slow this down, let's look at real problems in health care that we can do something about, rather than remaking the whole health care system.
And from where you sit, that's just not likely? That's just
I think it is possible. It depends on what all these folks are hearing in their districts during this month of August. Certainly they're hearing a lot of concerns from a whole bunch of people about the health care bill, but also about the amount of spending that all of this is amounting to. So I think there is a chance that when we go back in session after Labor Day, that this train will be slowed down, and I hope so, because that gives us a chance at least to consider some of these other options and not do this whole sweeping remake that has people so worried.
Looks like Joe Lieberman has already jumped on that train. We'll find out if anyone else does. The next question from Claudia. She asked, Congressman, how does any of the existing health care reform bills affect the uninsured who are currently receiving some health care under existing government health care programs like Medicaid, FQHC, and Title X programs? Will these programs go away, or will they be adequately funded?
I think there is concern about Medicare and what happens with Medicaid and what happens with Medicaid funding under this bill. Because remember, this bill that we're talking about will cost about $1 trillion. It's an enormous amount of money. So that's going to squeeze Medicare and it's going to squeeze Medicaid in their existing reimbursements. Now, the whole purpose of this supposedly was to cover the uninsured. But a number of people who don't have health insurance through their employer do have it through these government programs. Some are young people and decide not to have health insurance because they're going to live forever. Some others are in the country illegally. And others are eligible for these government programs like S-CHIP and Medicaid, but just have chosen not to sign up. One of the points that a lot of people make is let's focus on getting everybody who's eligible for the government programs we have signed up for those government programs, rather than create all these new government programs that would be so very costly.
All right, Roanne has a question that I've heard from several people, and it exists with two different issues here. Will the new health care bill include illegal immigrants? And will the government in this bill pay for abortions, any abortions, not just late term, she says?
For illegal immigrants, the bill says it does not cover illegal immigrants. The concern that has been expressed, though, is that there's not really an enforcement of that. So that while it says it in the bill, that in practice that's not what's going to happen. They will be covered. But we should say anyone who shows up in an emergency room today has to be treated for a serious condition. It is federal law that the hospital has to treat them. Abortion, federal law now says you cannot use federal funds to pay for abortion. There were attempts to add that language back into this health care bill in committee, and those failed. So the bill will not say explicitly at this stage it does pay for abortion, but the concern is that it creates a bunch of boards and commissions that say what is covered and what's not covered, and those commissions could say, yeah, we're going to start paying for abortion now. And that's the concern that people have with regard to federal funds being used under this bill to actually pay for abortion.
And if I'm correct, those commissions would be unelected and would be around for, what, 10 years?
Well, that's certainly in some of the versions. And I think that's the best summary of one of the key issues of the health care bill that not a lot of people have focused on. It's been called the Federal Reserve Board for Health Care. Unelected positions appointed for a period that could be 7-10 years, and they make the decision about what's covered and what's not, what has to be in the insurance plan you buy and what is not in the insurance plan you buy. So that is the crux of a lot of the concern about putting government between you and your doctor, that this Federal Reserve for Health Care will be the ones calling the shots, and you and your doctor don't have any leeway outside of what they permit.
All right, let's go to the next question here. We got this one from David. President Obama says we can keep our doctors if we like, at least that's what he's heard, but in 2013 the government will not allow insurance companies to take any new clients, thus eliminating my choices. Is this true?
Yeah, exactly. It is exactly the way he said it. We hear a lot, if you like what you've got, you can keep it. But under the bill, after 5 years, you have to comply with the government mandate, whatever kind of health insurance you have. And health savings accounts, as one example, will not be permitted. after 5 years. So it's the government plan or no plan after 5 years.
All right, Congressman, we're out of time, but thank you very much for your answers and being here tonight to face all those questions.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate that. We thank you for all of the questions you submitted for tonight's program with the Congressman. If we didn't get to yours, we will follow up this discussion with more with the Congressman and his staff and make sure you get answers to the questions you submitted.
We'll be right back after this.